Hello and welcome to the special support section of Melee's Turn Wheel. I'm your host, I'm a Melee Kirby, and today we are going to be looking at Inez, Tana, Vanessa, and Syrene from Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones. Alright guys, we've did it. We have did it. We made it to the end of this game for the most part. We still have Erica and Ephraim. But in terms of the other characters, the non-main characters to look at and analyze the supports for, we made it here. And obviously we saved these characters for last because we only just got Syrene. And I wanted to talk about, most of the Frelia characters together once she joined. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these guys. I have to be honest with you. I don't know how long this episode is going to be. I said that about the last one as well, which I recorded earlier today. It ended up being decently long. It's certainly not super duper short. So, maybe I'm not putting my money where maybe I'm not going to put my money where my mouth is, but I think for real this time it might be one of the shorter SSS episodes that I've ever done. And that is for the simple reason that I think two of these characters are good. I like both of them, and I think they're fun, and I'm excited to talk about them. And I think the other two characters are contenders for the most boring characters, not just in this game, but in the entire Fire Emblem series that we've looked at up to this point. And I'm just going to come right out and say, I think the two boring characters are Vanessa and Syrene. I think both of them are incredibly dull. I just read all of their supports a little bit ago, and I think they're so fucking boring. I am gonna be so honest with you guys, and I'm very sorry if this is disappointing to anybody, but I do not have it in me to go through and one by one go over each of these supports, especially since we do have a lot of supports to get through in this one. Inez and Tana both have 6, and then Syrene and Vanessa both have 5. So that's 22 supports to get through in one episode. I'm not doing that shit. I'm sorry. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through both Vanessa and Syrene very briefly and just talk about the supports between the two of them that I liked and that I feel like I have at least a little bit to say about. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's start with Syrene, I guess. Syrene supports with Kyle, Vanessa, Mulder, Gilliam, and Tana. And right out of the gate, we're going to talk about the Tana one later. So, I guess that's a good place to start. I don't have a lot to say about it for Syrene. I think that it's a good dynamic between the two of them. I think they're both, they both clearly have a lot of affection for each other. Tana describes Syrene as being somewhat like an older sister to her, because I guess when she was just a kid, Syrene was put in charge of watching over her, as a personal bodyguard type deal. I do think that this has a nice moment, especially for Tana. But I'll mention it here because it I think contextualizes their relationship pretty well. Syrene says, I was ordered to watch over you and ensure your safe return. I intend to stay by your side and serve as your bodyguard, princess. And in most of Tana's other supports, she is very, I'm good. I can do this on my own. I'm a competent fighter. I don't need anybody to protect me, which is true. And I'm actually going to talk a lot in Tana's section about how disappointed I am about where that ultimately goes for her, which is nowhere. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, the reason that I wanted to bring it up here is because in response to Syrene saying, I'm going to be your personal bodyguard, Tana's like, okay. Which I think goes to show how close they are, and I think that's a very cute dynamic. But I don't really have much else to say about it other than that. They both they bond, they do cute stuff together. Syrene teaches Tana a little bit about cooking, and Tana does well with it apparently, so that's nice. Happy for them. I like the Mulder support for Syrene, because I think it's fun and characterful that Mulder would forget his own birthday, and I think it's very fun and characterful that Syrene would have this whole setup in mind to celebrate it with him, which is very cute. I think that's a fun dynamic for the two of them. I don't much care for Mulder either, frankly. I think in that first episode, that's really funny actually, because I'm pretty sure in that first episode I might have even said he was my favorite. But that's because his competition was just awful, awful, awful. So Mulder's not a great character either, in my opinion. But I think that the two of them have a nice moment here. Now for Vanessa, we'll skip over to Vanessa for a quick second. And she supports with Mulder, Syrene, Lute, Ford, and Inez. I mean, okay, so the first issue is that half of these supports are about Inez. I mean, that is literally true. Two of them, I mean, one of them is with Inez, and then one of them with Mulder is primarily about Inez. And then in Syrene, they allude heavily to her having feelings for Inez. She does have another paired ending with Ford. And I think I might have skipped over this one when I was reviewing Vanessa's supports. I'm looking at it right now, and this is the one where Ford is like sleeping, and they like bicker a bit. I think I remember thinking this one was like fun, but I don't know. I don't really have anything to say about it. I don't remember what I said about them ending up together, but I'm just looking at it right now, and this shit's ass, bro. What would they were not cooking anything with this romance. That's so fucking funny. And then the Mulder support's just about Inez. So, I mean, I like the Lute support. I think it's a good support for Lute, and I think it's a good support for Vanessa because she actually, like, has moments where she gets to, like, have, fun dialogue and, just goof around and I don't know, have moments that I enjoyed. I mean, I don't want to say, like, in her other supports where she's like uptight and high strung, like that's character, right? Like that is not to say that she doesn't have character moments. She seems to have like, I mean, she's young, so she seems to have like some confidence issues. I'm not 100% sure. I don't really get that, like, a strong impression of that for her, but I guess that's, there's a couple lines that make me think that maybe that's true. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think Vanessa is just the most boring character in the game. Syrene at least has a couple supports. I think the Mulder one, especially, I think the Mulder support is, like, really good. Even though it's not, like, I don't think it does a ton for either character. I think it's just a nice, enjoyable read. Whereas I don't think I enjoyed reading any of these supports for Vanessa. The Lute one a little bit, but then I skipped over one that you guys might have noticed. I actually do quite like the support that these two characters have with each other. I think that the little sister big sister dynamic that they have. I mean, it's not a dynamic. It's not a metaphorical dynamic. They are literally siblings, and they talk about that at the beginning, right? Like Vanessa is saying like yes ma'am, and Captain reporting for duty, all that shit, and Syrene's like, you can just call me when it's just the two of us, when we're not like engaged in Pegasus Night mode. Just call me, big sister or whatever. And that takes a little bit of adjustment, which is cute. That feels like character for both of them. And they talk about Vanessa has a crush on somebody, and the way that, like, I think it's a cool moment for Syrene because she likes, like, Vanessa like skipped a couple meals, and Syrene's like, okay, well, I know you so well, I know you in every facet of your life, that I know that the fact that you're skipping meals must mean that you have a crush on somebody. And she's right. Which is like, I don't see how those two things like connect to each other at all. But I mean, I have no idea. But I think it's cool that Syrene is just able to like read that like tiny little detail about something Vanessa is doing and immediately put it together and be correct. I think that really speaks volumes about the connection they have with each other. And then the A support is talking. I mean, Vanessa spends a lot of time talking about how much she looks up to Syrene, and then Syrene says, "Well, in some ways, I look up to you as well. I think that you're level-headed. You're you have a strong heart." And all that stuff, and it's just very cute. These support is like maybe one of my favorites that we're going to talk about in this entire episode. But it's the only glimmer of interesting characterization for the most part that either of these two get, which is just so sad. I think and maybe like not so sad. Like, it's fine. Every game has boring characters, right? This isn't anything new. But I think just with the way that I've structured these, and I don't like talking about the characters in the SSS until we've met them in the main episodes. So I had to stick Syrene at the end here, and Vanessa just kind of makes sense to pair with her because they're siblings. So I guess it's just a bummer that I talked about two of the most boring characters in the game on the very last SSS, but what can you do? Okay, now let's get into the characters that I actually like, starting with Inez. Inez supports with Garrick, Vanessa, Tana, Joshua, La Rochelle, and Erica. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these, especially the Joshua one. I already talked about that. I think it's funny for Inez, and I think really what I like about so many of these supports is that they show off a good contrast between Inez, when he's in like full arrogant asshole mode, because that's what we see with Tana, that's what we see with Joshua, and I would argue that's what we see with Erica. But then there's also supports that he supports with Garrick, and he supports with Vanessa, and he's much nicer to them. In fact, Inez, the Garrick support actually opens with Inez apologizing to Garrick, which is so like bizarre, but like I don't feel like it's out of character for him because he explains it, he justifies it. What does he say? I think he just apologizes for his performance and his demeanor in the battle where you recruit Garrick and Inez and Erica out. I think what it really boils down to for the Garrick support, because Inez does mention that his father has told Garrick about how strong of a mercenary he is. And in fact, in the A support, I did just double check to make sure that this is correct. In the A support, Inez says that my father told me before I left that I should watch you and learn from you. At the time, I believed there was nothing a mercenary could teach me. Now I know better. I am thankful to both my father and you. So I think going into this interaction, and because he is kind of a dick to Garrick in like chapter 10 of Erica Route a little bit, like especially at the beginning. Like he's like trying to help them. He's trying to save their lives by getting him to run away. But he's still being an asshole about it. So I think what it boils down to, and what I find really interesting about this, is that Inez, this is one of the few interactions we get to see from Inez directed towards a person who he does not see himself as better than, because like he has that arrogant streak with Ephraim, maybe not necessarily that I don't know if he sees himself better as everybody else, but more like, he recognizes that Garrick like has more experience and is his better in some ways, and that he wants to like he does see value in he respects Garrick. I don't know why it took me so long to think of that phrasing, but he respects Garrick more than he respects other people, and I think that's where that mentality comes from. And then the Vanessa support, I think they've known each other for a while. It does end up with them being in a romantic pairing because Vanessa is like head over heels in love with this guy. And then like Inez is just genuinely really nice. He gives her compliments. He thinks that like, with her by his side, he's able to fight more effectively. And she's just eating it up. They have a cute relationship. It's not my favorite support from him. But it is one that I think is like pretty good, and again showcases a different side of Inez compared to some of the others. The Joshua support we talked about earlier. I think it's funny that Inez gets addicted to gambling, and is adamantly refusing to go out on a losing streak, but not really much else to say about it other than that. And then let's see, what else did I he doesn't that's kind of crazy, actually, that he doesn't have an Ephraim support. I don't know why they decided to not do that, but whatever. And the La Rochelle support I don't like. He is like, okay, so I did reread this, and at least, I skimmed it again, and I did see one line where he's like, in the Beast support they have like a little bit of a bickering back and forth. So it's not like, and maybe when I did the La Rochelle episode, I implied that they were just like super nice to each other. That's not necessarily true. They do bicker a little bit, but I think it's so, because he's mostly nice in the C support, and he's mostly nice in the A support. And then the B support, like they're bickering at first, but then it goes back to them being nice to each other. It's just like, it doesn't feel justified for me in the same way it does for Vanessa. They don't, or Garrick. He doesn't have that level of respect for her. like he does for Garrick, and he doesn't have that personal connection to her like he does for Vanessa. So I don't really know. I don't really know what the thought process here is on why he's on, why he's suddenly acting so out of character. But maybe you guys disagree. Maybe you think that this is normal Inez behavior. But I don't agree. Okay. The last two are Erica and Tana. Let's start with Erica. I really like this support in some ways. I think it is a very fascinating support. And I am going to preface this by talking about, because it's going to come up for these two supports for Inez, and it's also going to come up a couple times in when I'm talking about Tana supports. I'm sorry if this is something that you find annoying, because I know I've brought it up a few times, both in the main episodes and in the SSS episodes. I haven't heard any feedback about how people feel about about this assertion that I've made. But I just, I know that it's something, it's a topic that whenever it gets brought up, there's a lot of people inevitably who blow it off or who think it's dumb to even talk about. But so, I mean, I'm not actually sorry, because I enjoyed talking about it, but I guess if you're not a fan of talking about it, then buckle up, because I gotta talk about how this game treats women. I just gotta do it, because it's so front and center, in this support, and in the Tana support. Well, mostly in the support. We'll get to the Tana support in a minute. So the C support starts beautifully. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Could not ask for anything better. Inez says that he's going to protect Erica for a bit, for a while, and she says, okay, I guess, why? And then Inez says, well, you saved me back in Chapter 10. That's exactly what he says. He says Chapter 10. No, I'm kidding. But he says, I'm indebted to you, and I don't like being indebted to you. I hate the fact that I owe you one, so I'm going to protect you until we're even. And Eric says, okay, that's fine. And then kind of like the end of the C support into the B support, Inez is like, Erica, can you stop being on the front lines so that let me do it so that I can protect you? And she's like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? You're an archer. Stay behind me, back me up. That's protecting me still. You can still have my back while I go in and fight enemies with my sword. And she and him just bicker about it a little bit. Then it just goes completely off the rails. I mean, not completely off the rails. A little bit off the rails. It feels very out of left field to me, because all of a sudden in the B support he starts talking, because Erica starts laying compliments on Ephraim. He's a cool guy, he's a kind and gentle man, whatever. And then all of a sudden Inez is like, now I'm jealous of Ephraim, and then leaves. And then the A support, he says, hey, Erica, are you in love with anybody? And she says no. And he says, okay, then I'm going to go duel Ephraim for the opportunity to marry you. And Erica's like, you are out of your goddamn mind. Okay, so it starts off with them having this confession scene where Inez tells her, I've fallen in love with you. Putting that aside, I think it's sudden and out of left field, but I'm gonna put that aside for a second, because otherwise I like this scene. If it had been built up to better, I think that the dynamic here is very fun, because Inez is blurting all this out. He's not being not really sure how to phrase it properly, or phrasing it kind of awkwardly. And then Inez seems to be Erica seems to be she doesn't say yes, and it's not really clear how she feels about the whole thing. She seems very caught off guard, but he's not saying no outright either. And then he says, don't worry, you don't gotta answer me, just think about it while I go fight Ephraim, so that I can marry you. And then Erica all of a sudden gets really angry and says, why are you bringing Ephraim into this? And then Erica says, and Erica, after Inez leaves, Erica gets really mad and says, why is he like this? it's funny, and they do, like, hint at something here, right, where it's like, isn't it kind of fucked up and dumb of Inez to like think that he has to go fight Ephraim in order to marry Erica, and that's like not. I mean, it's not something that like happens anywhere else. Ephraim can marry Tana, and they don't have to fucking duel over it. So I think it's clearly meant to be read as like, oh, Inez is being stupid. But then in their paired ending, I don't know. In their paired ending, it still feels like yes, this is what he actually had to do. I mean, I don't know. Reading it back now, maybe I'm wrong, because it does feel more like, because Inez and Ephraim are constantly fighting each other anyway. That's something that comes up in the Tana support. I think I read the Tana support with Inez after this. So maybe now that I have the context of the Tana support, it feels less weird, because Inez and Ephraim are just fighting all the time. So this could have just been like a Tuesday for Ephraim, not even thinking anything more of it. But it feels very much like like Inez had to win Erica from by fighting Ephraim or whatever, which is, I mean, a shitty way to rate women. But I think maybe I'm. Now that I'm reading it a little bit more deeply, maybe that's not what it's trying to say. I don't know. It could go either way for me right now, but I don't know. I think if nothing else, this game has primed me to think that it's going to do this for a lot of its female characters. But maybe not. Okay. And then finally, let's talk about the Tana support. I think the support is great. Almost. I think it's a good support. I think the C support is excellent. Because it's just Inez telling Tana to go back to Frelia. Which makes sense. It makes sense for Inez. He doesn't want his sister to get hurt. And it makes sense for Tana because she wants to be out here helping her friends. And then it makes sense for Inez because he's an absolute asshole to her in this scene. Where he says, and it's in the B support where he just becomes an asshole. Where he says, it's true that you've gained some experience out on the battlefield, but your ignorance of the world around you is simply appalling. It must be tough for a pampered castle brat like you to interact with soldiers. And Tana's response to this is like great. She takes it in stride. She says, if you can say something like that to your own sister, I'm more worried about you. Even when you're right and your judgment is good, I know you're so blunt that I don't think many people will want to listen to you. So she reads him like a fucking book, he's like is just being so like cruel to her, and Tana's like, shut the fuck up. like even when you're right, which you're not, in this instance, no one's gonna want to listen to you if you're an asshole. Which I think does speak to their relationship, which does start to build into the A support a little bit. And then fucking Inez name drops Ephraim because Inez is like obsessed with Ephraim. Like, I know what you are. He brings up Ephraim into conversation like more often than I think is a coincidence. And then the A support starts off strong. It's Tana saying, like, Erica and Ephraim are so close. They're great siblings. They have a strong bond with each other. Why can't we have that? Why can't we understand each other in the way they do? And she seems very frustrated that Inez is just not understanding her point of view. And then it just goes completely off the rails. So Tana says, that's a lie. You're always so mean to me, Inez. You make no effort to understand how I feel. And Inez says, that's not true. I'm still your brother, and I think I know you better than anybody else. And then he proceeds to recount one time where he did something nice for her. And then that convinces her, like, you're right. You actually are really cool and an awesome brother, and I love you. I really still want to be here with you. Please don't make me go home. Please forgive me for coming here. And then Inez says, fine, you win. I'll give you permission to stay. I I'll let you stay, is what he says. And it's like, okay, you had me and then you lost me, right? Because if this support was just Inez being a dick, trying to convince Tana to go home, and Tana dug her heels in and said, no, you're being an asshole, you're not understanding my feelings, you're not even taking the time to understand why I would want to put my life on the line to help Erica and Ephraim and you. And if she had just, like, stood her ground, and then this support was about Inez learning that maybe he could stand to be nicer to his sister, maybe he isn't taking the time to understand where she's coming from, then it would have been great. 10 out of 10 support, would have loved it. But instead he just goes into this completely unrelated story about, and that is supposed to convince me that he is nice to her and that he does treat her well, and then all of a sudden Tana's the one who needs to make her pitch for why she still deserves to be here, and the power is put completely back in Inez's hands of, like, I'll let you stay here, instead of it being with Tana where it should be, because she is not in the wrong for this. She is not the one who should be apologizing here. It should be Inez, because Tana's just trying to do what Erica's doing. She's trying to protect the people that she loves, and she wants to show courage in the face of danger, and, like, it's fine when Erica does it, apparently, but for Tana, it's like, it's an issue. I don't know. I think it's a very subtle thing. I mean, the end result is the same, right? Tana stays. That was never going to change. I mean, it's not like they're gonna have her leave the army if you get this A support. That would be fucking deranged. But it's the wording and the subtle placement of power in this dynamic. And I mean, like, you can make all the arguments you want about how, you know, in medieval society, men were the one who held all the power. And that, like, but, like, that's not a real fucking argument, right? Like, this is not a realistic medieval setting. If this is a realistic medieval setting, like, Tana would have been, like, property, basically. She wouldn't be able to do anything on her own. It's much more resembling, like, modern forms of patriarchy, right? And it's definitely, like, you know, the realism argument doesn't work here. It's just, like, this series makes absolutely no effort to portray a realistic medieval society, except sometimes it treats women badly. Like, you know, that's really the only thing for the most part. The peasantry just absolutely loves their lords. The nobility is perfect and has no flaws, and actually nobles are great. I talked about this, I think, in one of the Lilina supports in FE6 as well, where it's just like there's absolutely, if this was intended to be a setting with a realistic understanding of what medieval culture was like, then the amount of naivete it has about people and power and the nobility system in general is, like, not, that's not anything, you know. It's a non-starter. So I don't want to hear anybody arguing that, like, oh, this is just how it was back then. Like, shut the fuck up. Because it wasn't. It was not. It was definitely, it was much worse than this. So it's just, like, why are you being so selective in what is represented accurately, you know? Okay, finally, let's move on to Tana, who supports with Inez, which we just talked about, Ephraim, Syrene, Cormag, Erica, and Marissa. Now, I'm going to do a lot of rewriting for these supports. I'm just going to be honest, because so many of these are, like, so weird. I'm going to start with the ones that I liked, which I liked the Syrene one, which I already talked about. I think it showcases the relationship they have with each other very well. I think they have a fun dynamic. And I think it shows how, you know, again, in the context of the Inez support, where she feels so passionate about arguing that she deserves to be here and that she can handle herself. The fact that she just let Syrene, you know, be her bodyguard without putting up any sort of fight, I think shows the level of trust that they have there. I don't love the Cormag support. I don't think it's like bad or anything. I don't like. I don't get it. I guess it's more. It's mostly. It's not that I don't get it. It's like mostly a development for Cormag. I don't think it really does much for Tana, personally. But for Cormag, I think it's a good moment for him to reflect on, what is a man who has nothing left. What does he do with himself after that? And Tana says, "Well, you can come work for me," and that's nice. I like their paired ending. But I don't really have anything to say about it for Tana. I really like Tana in the Inez support, again, right up until the end, where I think it kind of goes off the rails. I really like the Erika support. It just showcases the bond that they have, There's nothing really more to it than that. I think it's a good, a lot of good moments for both Tana and Erika. It shows off a little bit of, Tana being like, how do you and Ephraim get along so well? And Erika's like, well, I don't know, we're twins. Maybe that has something to do with it. She has no idea, and there's and she doesn't understand like what's normal for other siblings. She thinks that her relationship with Ephraim is comparable to what other siblings have. Even though, evidently from Tana and Inez, it's not, it's not true. So. Okay, and I mean, the last two supports, I don't even think these last two supports are bad. I actually quite like the Ephraim one. I think they have a cute relationship together. It does end in a paired ending for the two of them. I think the main thing that I felt frustrated by reading the Ephraim support is that she's clearly like flirting with him in the B support, where she's asking about the time they first met, and asking Ephraim, hey, do you remember all these details about me from that day? Even though it was so long ago. And then instead, Ephraim is instead recounting all the things that happened with Inez. Which, like, I know what you are. But it just doesn't really make sense to me why she would do this. Like, why is this her barometer for for her metric for whether or not he was paying attention to her when they met like once 5 years ago or whatever? Instead, I think it would make more sense if she was like, if she put on like nicer clothes, or like was like wearing more makeup or something like that. If she's trying to get his attention now and he's being completely oblivious, if that's the direction they wanted to take it, then that's fine. They could have just done that. I don't get what, I mean, I guess they wanted to do double duty here about like him, or about her flirting with him, and then also, expositing some backstory. But like the backstory that they exposit doesn't really like do anything. It just shows that Ephraim's oblivious, and likes his rivalry with Inez. That's really all that it does. So I don't really see why that needed to be in there. And then by the A support, she just is completely moved on to the point where Ephraim like actually points that out. He just says that she's in a better mood and she doesn't understand what he means. So like clearly she has gotten over it already. I don't know. I just like it's cute. It's just I feel like some of the ways that they handled it were weird. But it's fine. It's a good support. I like them as a couple. And then the Marissa support is pretty interesting because I feel like there's such an obvious direction for this to go. Like there's such a clear line here for an interesting and compelling support, which is that if Tana ostensibly left Grotto because she wants to grow stronger, she wants to be the type of person that Erika is, who can go out and fight with confidence and be a I don't know, show that she can be a warrior with the best of them, right? Marissa's exactly that. I mean, not in gameplay. There's a very big, some ludonarrative dissonance going on here between the story and the gameplay, because in gameplay, Marissa's terrible, but in the story, she's supposed to be, like, incredibly strong, one of the strongest, most feared mercenaries in the entire world. And Tana has her right here. They're interacting with each other, and their support has absolutely nothing to do with Tana asking Marissa, hey, like, how did you get so strong? Like, do people ever look down on you for being a woman? You know, like all these things that I think would make sense for Tana to be asking. I mean, even if they, because the gender, the gender thing is not something that's ever explicitly brought up, even in the Inez support, right? She's never like, oh, you don't think I can handle myself because I'm a woman. That never comes up. That's something that I'm reading into the subtext there. I think it's incredibly obvious subtext, but there is room to argue with me, I guess. So, but even if they didn't want to go that angle and make it explicit, it could very easily be like, hey, like, what's your background? You know, like, do you ever feel like, you know, when you first started out, like, you know, was it hard for you or anything? You know, there's a million different ways that they could go with this for Tana to look at Marissa as someone to look up to. And then there is a little bit in there about, you know, her and Marissa bonding over Pegasi. So it feels like there's a good opportunity here for them to learn from each other. But they refuse to do any interesting character things with Marissa, so I guess we just have to deal with this instead. It's like a fine support. I absolutely no opinion on it one way or the other. On what is actually there, it really is just like I wanted to talk about how I felt that was a missed opportunity. Because yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a bummer to me that they couldn't have done a little bit more with that. But okay, that is all for all of these characters. It did end up being longer than I thought, again, because I droned on for Tana and Inez for so long. I really thought that almost entirely skipping 2 characters would make this go by faster, but no, I was able to yap for like 30 minutes on just Tana and Inez, which is I think goes to show how much I like them. Between the two of them, I think Inez is probably my favorite, just because I think he's so fucking psychotic. And you know, like he's so he's such a professional hater, and like arrogant and pigheaded that I think it's really funny. But it's not very one-sided. I actually also really like Tana. I think these guys are very strong, compelling characters. And the complaints I had about their supports, I think are ways that their characters could have been even better, that were unfortunately, in my opinion, missed. But you know, what is still there is still very good. I still like most of their supports. I still like most of their main story dialogue. I think they're both great characters. So, but it is I am leaning slightly towards Inez for this one. Okay, and that is, again, except for Erica and Ephraim, every character in Sacred Stones. So you guys know the drill. When we do the question for next episode, the next main episode will be who's your favorite character in FE8. And I'm gonna be honest, guys, I have to really think about this one. I have to go back. I'll probably re-listen to all the SSS episodes just to see who I picked as my favorite for each one. But I know there's a few standouts that I'm like considering. But I won't, you know, I'll keep that a secret until we get there, I guess. So yeah, think about who you guys think your favorite character is. Maybe go back and re-listen to the SSS episodes, if you haven't in a little bit. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed me going through the cast on this one. Very mixed bag. And I you know, I feel like I should be wrapping this up, but I guess we're gonna talk about the characters in general in the wrap up episode, so I'll save most of it for when we get there. Until then, though, guys, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.